Rick. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Water's Edge here on this beautiful Sunday morning. It is crazy to believe that this is the weather we have this close to Thanksgiving. Apparently, the lights are going off on me. I'm not sure what's going on. Now it's dark. Interesting. We are so glad you are here for this Sunday. This is Commitment Sunday. It's also Vision Sunday. And today, Craig, myself, Leandra, and Chad, we're going to do a little walk down memory lane. We're going to talk about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And some of you guys may recognize the sign that's next to me. This was actually our sign that was on the Ministry Center building. Fun story. We sold it, and then the sign never came down, and a church member actually turned around and bought it from the people who bought it from us. And a few weeks ago, he showed up at church with this sign. So you guys have probably seen this sign over and over again many, many, many times. So it's kind of cool that we have it back here in the building with us. Not really sure where we're going to put it, but I think we'll find a spot for it. Another fun fact, if you have been in the kids area and you look up toward the offices, you'll actually see the big lit sign that says We Church that used to also be on the side of the ministry center. It's kind of fun that we were able to get that, stick it in the kids area so that we could repurpose and reuse it. But like I said, it's going to be a fun morning of reminiscing, of dreaming, all that fun stuff. So the format for the service is a little bit different. So you've got about 3 minutes before we start. I encourage you to go ahead, grab your Bibles, grab your coffee, your donuts, whatever it is you need, and be here right back at 9 a.m. We'll see you soon.
Previously at the Water's Edge.
done for me. He has done for you. He has done for us. Come and listen. Come and listen to what He's done. Come and listen. Come and listen to what He's done. Praise our God, for He is good. 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 He has done for me. He has done for you. He has done for us. Come and listen. Come and listen to what He's done. Come and listen. Come and listen to what He's done.
As I was listening to the song and watching the video there, I just thought that the pandemic has taken a lot of things from us. But then I was thinking that there's a lot of things the pandemic has not taken from us. For example, the pandemic has not taken away our ability to pray. The pandemic has not taken away our ability to serve, nor has it taken away our ability to encourage others. All of us can encourage others, and we can do so regularly. The pandemic has not taken away our ability to give. Y'all have proved that here. Especially this year, you've just given beyond our wildest expectations. The pandemic has not taken away our ability to read God's word. The pandemic has not taken away our ability to worship. The pandemic has not taken away our ability to forgive. And most of all, the pandemic has not taken away our ability to love. Now, I love that song. It was really cool to hear Elizabeth sing it this morning. Usually it's AJ that's singing it, but that song's actually where the name of our church comes from. Some of you actually see here, and probably a few of you online as well, would remember the early days when we were trying to think of a name for a new ministry. We didn't start off as a new church. We started off as a new ministry. We would not be here if it wasn't for the significant investment of Faith Westwood United Methodist Church. And, a lot of who we are, we owe to them and their vision and their generosity. But we were trying to think of names for the new ministry, and none of us were coming up with any good ones. And one day I was running. I used to do a lot of that back then, and I was listening to this song, the one you just heard. It was from a band called the David Crowder Band, and I was listening to the lyrics, and I said, I know that's from, the Bible. I think it's from, one of the early chapters of Mark. I was thinking it was 3, but it was actually the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4. And really, this is where the name of the church came from, right? When I read it, and I said, okay, that's it. And Jesus began to teach by the lake. So in chapter 3, he had just healed some people. People were really curious about this man that goes around and heals other people. The Bible continues, the crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and he sat out on the lake while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. So in the room next to us, the kids' large group area, we have a boat there. And that's the reason why we have a boat, because there are so many people So when we're in there teaching, whether it's the kids, the youth, the adults, like we can stand up on the boat and, like Jesus, teach the people who are sitting at the water's edge. Now, the vision was this, that people come to the water's edge to hear the stories and the teachings of Jesus. And because we hear these stories and because we hear these teachings, what happens is we're changed. Like, you cannot listen to these powerful gospel stories without significant impact happening in your life. So then when we change, the world around us changes. The mission has always been the same. It hasn't changed in 15 years. To help people in their relationship grow in their relationship with God and grow in their relationship with others. It doesn't matter like if we're a new ministry that is starting off at Russell Middle School. It doesn't matter if we become a new church on January 1st, 2012. It doesn't matter if we're in the middle of a pandemic. The mission is the same, to help people grow in their relationships with God and their relationships with others. Now, this has been a tough year for a lot of people, and one of the things I hear as a pastor is I have grown significantly this year. Like, it's been bad in a lot of ways, but I feel my faith has deepened. I feel that my relationships with the people who are most important to me, I feel that those significant relationships, they've grown, and it's not going to be that way for everybody, but it's been that way for a lot of people, and in that way, the mission is being accomplished. Now, I remember back in the early days, and some of you may have participated in some of these. Like, we used to do car washes. Like, that was how we gathered some people. Like, we used to wash people's cars and give car washes away. We used to do all these grocery drives, and we did this really until this year, and hopefully we'll start doing them again after the pandemic is done. But we would stand outside grocery stores with these bags, and we'd have people go fill them up, and we'd give the bags together. And I remember one time, me and a guy, Craig Barnum, I think he lives in Waco, Texas now, but we drove his old pickup down together, and we had all this food in the back, and we got there just in time because their shelves were pretty empty, and they had this long line of people, waiting around, actually around the building, lined up for the food. And I said, we're onto something here, and we're gonna keep doing that. We used to give away Sunday papers. That was when people would get Sunday papers, and so we'd give away the Sunday papers, and we'd have a little thing, coming student on Sunday mornings, the Water's Edge at Russell Middle School, and that was back when people would read the Sunday papers. We've worshiped at various places, Russell Middle School, Millard West High School, Scott Catholic High School. I joke around, we're probably the only Methodist church in the country that's ever worshiped in a Catholic high school. And they were good to us both times, and we're grateful for them. Tiburon Golf Course, that worked good for the golfers. They go to church, then go get in a quick 9 afterward and just make one trip. I remember one time the director of Release Ministries called me up, and this was we were kind of young at the time, and he said he needed a new van, and it was the beginning of the year, and I said, okay, we'll take care of it. And then I hung up the phone, and I said, what did I just do? So we took an offering, and we took in a lot of money, and then I had a donor I knew that was going to match some of it, and we bought this, as a young ministry, we bought this ministry partner. We had their gala here last year because they couldn't do it down at UNO where they planned, so they did a virtual one here, but there's been a long 15-year relationship with them. International missions, we work so hard on that. We've supported international missionaries. We're doing so now. In December, we're going to have a chance to do something really cool in Nicaragua. I saw Chris Syme here earlier. He's back from Uganda. We've taken teams to Belize. We've bought dozens of bicycles for pastors in Cuba. But local missions is going to be the heart of what we do. Early in the early days, and even now, we have this house church movement. It's my desire, even as a large congregation, that it's not going to be possible that everybody knows everybody, but everybody has to know somebody. And even during the pandemic, and we'll hear stories of this, how groups have flourished during these times. And during the next year, maybe challenge yourself to join one of our house churches, to start one of our house churches, to get into some kind of learning group. John, who's one of the singers up here, he and I teach a class called We Lead, and it's about leadership development, but it's also about friendship development, community development, and he and I would be very disappointed if someone left that class without having a few new friends. Local missions has been the heart of what we do, and I talked about how we took that food down together before we even launched worship. It was like this really cool thing. So we've had this partnership with them for the entire 15 years, and we had set a goal. I was talking to Ron Christensen, who's just been a partner right beside me the whole time, and I was talking to him just a few weeks ago about how to kind of manage all the giving stuff that we have in front of us, and he had set a goal, and I had agreed to the goal of providing 100 meals for people in Omaha. And even during a pandemic, I think, I haven't talked to him about this specifically, but I think he thought that was probably a pretty lofty goal, and I was thinking it was a pretty lofty goal. So we've talked about kids here as well, and kids are so important to us. We invest in the next generation. I've had 2 kids, one who's grown up here, and he's coming home Tuesday, and I can't wait to see him. Haven't seen him since August, and I'm going to a basketball game and another one right afterward, but I couldn't imagine a better place for these 2 kids to grow up. And we're going to have some of our kids talk about our commitment to local missions. So here's their story.
We interrupt this service for a very special announcement. We set a goal for $3,500 to feed our neighbors a Thanksgiving dinner. You guys not only met that goal, but you exceeded it with almost $10,000 worth of donations. Now back to you, Pastor Craig.
So that's the next generation of kids here at the Water's Edge. 2 of those were Chad's, who
I
we'll
was going to say, whose kids are those?
hear from in a moment. Michelle is up after Chad, and Felix was the well-caffeinated young man that gave us the good news. But seriously, that's amazing. Like, during a pandemic, y'all brought in 55 bags, but then you gave $10,000, just right over $10,000, and I think the number was 346. So Ron, they kind of exceeded our goal there a little bit, and I couldn't be more pleased about it. But last week we talked about we give from a broken heart, and it broke a lot of our hearts. So there's going to be people that in this city that look at an empty table on a feast day, Thanksgiving, and because of y'all, 346 families won't have to. So Chad, you've been with us 13 years now, so basically most of the time that we've been around, not quite all the time, but most of the time. And you'd come to us from a church in Oklahoma. You grew up in Omaha. You've been part of what we do, especially like with the student ministries in recent years, especially here at the building, some of the tech stuff and other leadership stuff. We were talking earlier this week about just some of the highlights over the 15 years. And one of the things that came to your mind was the vision gatherings that we did as we were, purchasing this land, and then really before the time we built the building, but just growing our congregation, and eventually determining what this building looks like, and then also raising the money for that. So talk to us about, I can tell those vision gatherings are very important to you. So talk to us about, what those were like for you.
Yeah, Craig, I mean, that seems like so long ago. I didn't have any gray in my beard, and you didn't have a beard at the time. I just remember, being hired and starting and having conversations just sometimes with just you, and then as we started to develop and figure out who we were going to be as a church, I remember the 2 vision gatherings that we had. One was kind of like an overall, where are we going as a church conversation, and then the other one was when we had the vision gathering for what the building would be, and those were at Tiburon. If anybody remembers gathering at Tiburon, the thing that stuck out to me the most about those days was when we got there, it didn't matter. You didn't have anywhere you had to sit. You just sat down somewhere. You found some friends, and then as you sat there, one of the questions was always asked, like, what do you envision for our church? What matters to you? What do you care the most about? And I remember when we started asking people, we started putting stuff up on a board, we'd go around and a table would start listing all the things, and every single table, like the first 5 or 6 tables, it was always like, we want to be a church that welcomes kids and youth and that reaches out into the community and provides a place to minister to families, right? And then the second table said the same thing, and then the third table said the same thing. I was waiting for somebody to like interrupt and just, can we just agree that every table did this? But really that was really what happened, is every single table there said, we want to be a church where we reach out to families, where kids matter, where they're loved, and where they're poured into.
I thought one of the interesting things about that is that a lot of those tables, had kids who were adults at the time, and they weren't little kids anymore. So, Benny would have been middle school, David probably would have been preschool, kindergarten-ish. Your kids might have either been on the way or just preschool-ish.
Yeah.
But now having, like, a son that's in college and one that's in 8th grade, now I get it, because I can look back on Benjamin's life and just think of all the people who have invested in him, and I could not imagine, a better place for him to grow up faith-wise, and to see the significant investment that so many of our people with adult kids, and they still have that love and they still have that investment in our kids.
Yeah, I think it does. It comes a lot out of the vision. And we were talking about this earlier, Craig, like a lot of that vision, when we were talking about it earlier this week, a lot of that vision came from you. Not because necessarily you saw exactly what needed to be done, but that you set the stage for our church to dream and our church to imagine. In Joel chapter 2, it says, after doing all these things, that God says, I'll pour my spirit upon all people, and your sons and your daughters, they'll prophesy, and your old men, they will dream dreams, and your young men, that they will see visions. And when we talk about those visions, I don't know that anybody could see exactly what this building would look like. I don't know that anybody could see exactly what our youth or kids ministry would look like, but they could see that those things mattered, and that they wanted to pour into those people.
Yeah, for sure. And then visions, really 3 things happen to a vision. Either it doesn't come true, it hasn't come true yet, right, or it has come to fruition. So let's talk about how you've seen that vision then, like especially in your work with the students, but you can respond in general as well. Like, how have you seen that vision come true? Like, the dream of all the people, like saying, like, let's invest in the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, one example, we just have Liz and Jimmy up here, and Liz grew up in the youth group, and she's come full circle, and now, she's singing, and they're a part of who we are at the Water's Edge. They've got a house church, and they're still involved. You have countless stories of that. Some more we'll get to hear about hopefully in a little bit. But like, I also know that never once, in all of my years here, never once have I had to tell any student in our youth group, I'm sorry, you don't get to go on a mission trip because we can't afford it, or because there's not money there. I've never, I've always had volunteers or parents or other adults that come forward and they just say, look, we want to sponsor somebody, and if there's somebody that's in need, just let me know, and I'll write a check. We've never had a place where we've never not had a place for our youth to meet. I remember there were some really crowded days in the basement of that ministry center before we moved into Russell, but we also met in somebody's outbuilding shed out back of their house. They opened that up for us so that when Water's Edge launched as its own congregation, we had a place for our kids and our youth to be. Those are all things that just continually stick out of my mind, even when you're talking about the boat and creating a place that reflects not just who we are as a church, but that opens up for anybody.
Yeah, and pre-pandemic, I used to love to bring David on Wednesday nights just because you had come to this room, and it was basically, just full of like middle schoolers and high schoolers, and just like this really, really cool thing to see so much energy. And then during the pandemic, we've been able to invest in technology because of the generosity of the people, and we had to buy some new stuff, but like you'll give talks, we'll record those, then we'll play those into the 8 or 9 classrooms we have, and the other side of the building's full on Wednesday nights, not this side so much, but again, it's the investment of the people that's making this possible.
Yeah, and Craig, it's not just like the fact that we have like a video camera and we can broadcast my talk to a room, but the reality of what makes that happen is that we have volunteers that are in those rooms.
Oh, yeah.
There are, we have 10 classrooms, and there's 2 to 3 volunteers in each one of those rooms that we could not do what we have right now. We couldn't even do before what we used to do without volunteers who give of their time and their energy and who make that possible. I think the coolest thing about that, though, is what we see happen because of that. We've had adults that have invested in our youth and invested in our students. And 13 years ago, I came and we had freshmen who are now married, and some of them having their own kids, and they have turned back around and they serve and they make a difference in our kids' lives. And in fact, it's kind of cool, I think this maybe this personal story is like, a few years ago, we used to do this We at Night service. If anybody remembers going to Palisades, one other location that we used to meet.
Probably not many people remember. It was never a large service. But, if you did come, it was great. We loved it.
But one thing that I remember about that is every Wednesday or Sunday night I'd grab my car and we'd go pick up the trailer that had all the sound equipment and everything for that. And my son always wanted to go. And the reason that he wanted to go was because on Sunday night, he got to hang out with Sean and Evan. And Sean and Evan were our, like every Sunday night sound and tech guys, but they also helped move tables around, and they would cheer Caleb on. I think it was almost 5 years ago? He was 5 or 6 years old, and he's pushing around these tables in an elementary school, and they just loved on him, and they showed him how much he mattered. The thing that I thought about that was like, I and other volunteers, we got to invest in these 2 guys, and then they're now turning around investing in my son. And then I thought, how cool would it be if someday they have kids, and then my son is maybe or hopefully leading their kids, and we've seen that. I think we're actually into a second generation of leadership and development here at the church.
Yeah, I remember that. I always thought that when that was happening, like the second most important thing that was happening was that the tables and chairs and sound stuff was set up. The most important thing was the relationships and the mentoring.
Yeah.
So one of those kids, Sean, he's not a kid now, he's like an adult. We're going to watch him and Grace and their story. They both grew up here at the Water's Edge.
My name is Grace Carmody. This is my husband, Sean Carmody. And we both attended Faith Westwood, and then we both transitioned to the Water's Edge with our families. When I think about the people that have impacted or shaped who we are from the Water's Edge, my first instinct is the adults that attended the mission trips with us when we were in high school. And especially now that I'm a young adult, realizing like how precious paid time off is, and realizing that a lot of those adults chose to voluntarily take 5 days of their paid time off to hang out with sweaty teenagers. And I also when I think about people that invest in us, I don't really think about the specific, super beautiful words they said or how hard they worked on mission trips, but I think about like the times in the van together, just spending time and just talking to us like human beings rather than kids.
I couldn't name off probably countless adults that have been and impacted our lives throughout the entire time that we've been here, whether it was even us volunteering alongside with them or they were volunteering to help with us. It's all been a great relationship, no matter who we've worked with or interacted with here at the church. It's been, there's a variety of things that we've been involved with, and including, just mainly helping out with kids, which has had its ups and downs. It's fun more than anything, but I just remember being a kid and how that was, and hoping that we make an impact on them to hopefully help out as well.
Jesus talks about having a childlike faith, and what better way to remember that and learn what childlike faith is than otherwise to be surrounded by it. I mean, there were times when like you really accomplished nothing that you were supposed to on the agenda of like We Kids or We Youth, but it led to bigger discussions or different discussions that wasn't the plan, but it worked out better that way.
Thank you for letting us, be a part of the church. Thank you for letting us teach your kids and just let us volunteer. There are certain things that we're definitely, some people are more capable than others at, whether it is with kids or swinging a hammer or digging a hole or, we're just thankful that we get to be a part of it.
Thank you to the people that did that for us.
Yeah.
Like that were the people in the vans with us on mission trips or that will some days.
Yeah, so Chad, I'm sure that's like rewarding for you. I think the average youth minister is somewhere for like 2.5 years or something like that. And you've exceeded that, like hitting your 13th year, but you remember when these kids were in middle school taking them on trips, and the same with Elizabeth, and now they're adults that are active leaders in our church. And Michelle, I know that's been special for you too. You do a lot of things around here. The director of kids ministry, we're looking for a new kids person to take your place. You've done a lot of stuff with social media, website, online ministry, which is a huge part of what we do now. The videos you're seeing today, Michelle has created those, so her role has adapted here over the last 6 years, and it's just been a joy to see you bloom and blossom in ministry. One of the things you do too, you're kind of on the side. We don't do a lot of weddings here. A lot of them are off-site, but you're the wedding coordinator. And so Sean and Grace were our first wedding here, is that right?
Yeah, they were the very first wedding here, and it's kind of funny because I can remember Grace talking about how she was going to have the first wedding in this church, and I'm not even sure if she and Sean were actually dating at the time.
No, I think she was talking about it like when she was still in the youth group.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she had
it's been
this,
a while.
She had this plan, and most of us were like, okay, there's not even dirt moved out there.
I joked around with her after like we had built the building and they booked the date. I said like, hey, I did book a wedding like a week before yours. It's gonna be small, but yeah, it wasn't funny.
Nice. Don't
joke with a bride about anything. Like,
Yeah. Well, what was cool though is like when I was doing this interview with Sean and Grace, we talked about it. And she used the words full circle, which I think is so great to explain it, because she talked about how cool it was for her and Sean to grow up in this church, and then on the day of their wedding, be able to look out there and see not only friends and family, but all these people from the church that invested in them. And even the week before, it was cool because they taught 4th and 5th grade in We Kids. And those kids gathered around Sean and Grace, and they prayed for them and prayed over them. And it was just so cool to see, how these two kids have come full circle, and they've had that impact on those kids. And then what's even cooler is with their story is Sean and Grace left for a year. Yeah. They went to is it San Francisco, is that right? For Sean's job. And here they are a year later. They jumped right back in because they were able to continue to remain connected to the church. And most of that was through our online ministries. And Craig, I remember when I first started 6 years ago, we were in the process of building, and you talked about big doors all the time. In fact, so much that whenever we were in a meeting, I would think to myself, this man's going to talk about big doors again. It was just something you constantly brought up. And truly, it's those big doors that allowed Sean and Grace to grow up in this church, to leave for a year and remain connected.
Yeah, the world has changed so much in the last year, and I would even say like the last decade and a half especially, but the pandemic has exacerbated like the change. And one of the reasons we're moving Michelle from kids ministry to online ministry is this is the way the world is going. I mean, who would have thought 20 years ago that Kmart and JCPenney are gone and Amazon is king? That face-to-face meetings in the boardroom are gone, and Zoom is where we do such thing. Who thought that Ethan Allen was going to be gone and Wayfair, has taken over the furniture thing? And I was talking about Wayfair back in May when I bought that, and I've made one good investment in my life, and it was Wayfair in May or in March. Nice. But the point is, though, online ministry now is just, and it's not going to change. Like when the vaccine comes out, and there's hope. Like this pandemic is going to end. But online life is not going to end. And you've done such a good job at this. And let's maybe talk about, let's just talk about some stories maybe of, online ministry here at the Water's Edge.
Yeah, just to get back to the basics, though, our church has always had a mission of bringing people into a closer relationship with Christ and with others. And this pandemic hit, and it was like, how do we do that? Because all of a sudden we go from being gathered in this building on Sunday mornings, being gathered in houses, to you have to remain distant from each other. And so we really had to stop and rethink how we did ministry and basically go back to the basics. And there's this great verse in Acts chapter 14, and it says, when they arrived and gathered at the church together, they declared all that God had done with them and how he had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. And looking at this verse, it fits us so well, because what God did through online ministry and technology is he really did open a door to faith to all of us when we thought, it was going to be shut down. We were in a place through you guys' generosity that we had the technology in place where, on the day that it was determined we could no longer have in-person service, it didn't stop us from gathering together in a church. We just did it differently. We went to online. And what we were able to do through online church was to continue to gather as a community. Actually, right now I have my phone in my lap because I'm watching as you guys are watching, and you're doing that. You're gathering in community. And so instead of being isolated from one another, we could continue to join in church together. We could keep the communication up. One of my favorite stories was in the early days of the quarantine when we started doing the weekly prayer services. It was just something that we thought would be important to do.
We thought we'd do a couple of them.
Yeah, we honestly thought 1, 2, maybe every other week, and it got to be a weekly thing. But what was so cool to me, and I can remember, sitting right there in tears, was watching the interaction with our people. And it wasn't just our people, it was people that had just happened to stumble upon us on Facebook. But to see the interaction and to see the support and the prayers just coming like they would on a Sunday morning was amazing. And the other thing that we've seen is online has opened the door to people who normally wouldn't even step foot in this building, being able to be a part of a church community. I can think of two in particular. We have both ladies who live in Iowa, who are a part of this congregation, so much so that they have turned in commitment cards. They get all of our communications. We got an email the other day from parents of some of our members who have made this their church, because in the midst of a pandemic, when their churches had to literally close their doors, they were able to find us and join a community. And we actually have one of those ladies who joined us via Zoom. Hours away, and you've been watching online faithfully. I know I see you every Sunday, and I see you pop in when we do the weekday things too. What has kept you wanting to be a part of that, even being so far away?
Well, being a retired pastor, I'm kind of picky about things, but you people put across something that's so useful. Like your pastor preaches about, he's kind of subtly brilliant. And things come out that I'm going, wow. And, I probably preached those scriptures dozens of times, but to go to a pastor that actually can give you new insights and everything, and your staff is wonderful. You're wonderful. Leandra's wonderful. It's always good. So,
how have you experienced community by watching online at the Water's Edge?
Well, we watch it on YouTube on Sundays. But I also hold my little cell phone in my hand, and I'm watching it online there. And because there you can make remarks.
Right.
And you can see what the other people are saying about the sermon, which really adds a lot. You're not supposed to talk during church, but, this is okay. So we interact that way, and I feel like that's a community. And sometimes I even see someone I know from up here, on there. So
Cool. What's been the experience been like being a part of the online community at the Water's Edge?
Well, I have a great longing to be up close and personal because that's how I've always done my ministry. But it's always satisfying. When you hear the sermon or whatever, you always take something away, and just generally, you feel so good about that church. It feels like you have a vision of where you're going. And I like that vision. I admire it and I want to be part of it. So if I ever live closer, you'll see me.
Is there anything you would like to share with the people of the Water's Edge?
I'd just like to thank you for allowing me to be on the screen and share my joy at Water's Edge. And I tell other people about it, watch it, because if you don't have a place to go for church, this is wonderful. Or even if you do.
Yeah, one of the things she said that I just loved, besides about me being brilliant, was
Goodness.
it happens once a century. So like you guys are witnessing history right now.
I tried to edit that out, but I couldn't.
Yeah, one of the things that one of the things I love what she said though was a great longing to be up close. And when we built this building, like there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of technology in this room. And our building team had some interesting discussions on whether that was enough or too much. But we landed in a great place. And the reason we did it, though, wasn't, none of us saw a pandemic coming where this would be essential. We did it for two reasons. One reason was we really wanted convenience for our own people, like that might have a youth basketball tournament on Sunday morning or a soccer tournament in Kansas City, or they're at the lake for the weekend. We wanted them to like feel and be a part of our congregation. The second reason was like the big doors. Most people pre-pandemic, before they would come, would watch us online a few times, and we wanted to make sure that our product was good so that we could offer hospitality and welcome to them. Now, Michelle, talk to us a little bit about how you've seen this investment in technology play out, not just on Sunday mornings, but during the week as well, where we can reach people during a pandemic, and it's going to help us post-pandemic as well.
Yeah, so I think back to when I started 6 years ago, and we really didn't have an online product. What we had was the sermon videos that we would edit and then put on YouTube at a later time. Sometimes it'd be a day later, sometimes it would be 3 or 4 days later. But the thing is, like, we had no way for our people to join us on Sunday mornings. And, you know, it's not the greatest word to use, but we get in the habit of going to church. You know, it's part of our schedule. And so if we don't have something at 9 or 10:30 when most people are willing to go and usually go, then the chances of them going and watching after the fact, it's just not good. I mean, let's just be real. Like, you're not necessarily going to tune in later just because you get busy. And so when we were able to start giving that online product, that live stream, it changed everything for us. We went from people being disengaged for weeks at a time because they may be traveling for work or sports to being able to tune in every Sunday at their normal time, and to be able to, like Cheryl said, talk in church. And I know that that's taboo, and I used to refer to it as, you know, passing notes in church, but they were still able to engage and be a part of the church right there wherever they are. And what's cool about that too is people like Cheryl were able to do that. She talked about a little bit about how, you know, they're 3 hours away in Correctionville, Iowa, I think is where they are, and they can't get here all the time, but they are part of this congregation because they can watch it online. And all of that really did come through the investment in the technology here. I mean, how many conversations were there?
Oh, a lot. You know, but we started with like your phone.
Yeah, it's crazy. Our first
Not
live,
that one.
Not this one.
It wasn't nearly as nice as that
No.
one.
I think we burned up several phones, and that's how I ended up with this. But yeah, our first live stream was a Christmas Eve live stream when we were at Millard West. And my son Wolf just happened to go up to Craig and say, hey, you know, we can live stream this via Facebook. And the next thing I knew, my phone was being put, you know, on a tripod, and we streamed that way. And then we went from there to this, I forgot to bring it with me, this tiny Mevo camera, which is actually smaller than this. And we did that for probably 2 years. And
Yeah, it was like a few months, and then we switched. We were using this really nice
Right.
camera to record the services, and we go, why don't we use this really nice camera and find a way to stream it? And then we
Yeah.
started taxing our volunteers, and I mean, before we
Yeah.
knew it, our tech team was growing, and
Yeah, one of the things I want to talk about too, Michelle, was about the social media. So one of the things I've talked about here for a long time is that Christianity is not something you just do on Saturday night or Sunday morning. It's something you do 7 days a week. And, so we're aware, like, social media can be a cesspool of people. Like, just get on Twitter, like, when Nebraska's playing, and you'll discover that. People complain and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things we're seeking to do is, like, redeem technology and redeem social media. So tell us just real quickly, like, how we're doing that here at the church.
Yeah, one of the hardest parts, whether we're in a pandemic or not, is for us as a staff to be able to reach the people beyond Sunday. There's only so many conversations we can have on Sunday, and we can't go to door for all of you. Some of you guys probably wouldn't even answer your door if some of us showed up on your doorstep. And what social media has allowed us to do really is, again, open the door to communications. And so through social media, we're able to do prayer requests. It's been so cool to see. I usually post those on Monday. How can we pray for you this week? And just to see you guys, let us know what's going on in your lives, whether you put it in the comments or send us a direct message. We've been able to do Bible studies. Craig's doing a Thursday lunch and learn. Prior to that, Craig and I did this silly little Thursday live segment where honestly most of the time we talked about food. I'm not sure why it ended up food. Maybe it was lunchtime. But what was cool about that is anybody could tune in, no matter where they were, and they weren't getting this deep theological discussion, but it was something they could tune in and be a part of, and a lot of it was relevant to the world. Like, do you remember when we did the chicken taste test?
Yeah, everyone was talking about the Popeyes chicken, the Chick-fil-A, so we brought the truth to the world, and I think Popeyes won. If I'm not mistaken, it was a good sandwich.
Yeah, and so by doing things like that, though, we're able to open the door to conversations with other people and really get inside your week, what it is you're doing, because most of us aren't, doing Bible studies 24/7. We're living life. And so through social media, we've been able to do that. And we've also been able to do ministry that way. We've been able to live stream services, do these Bible studies, do prayer times. We've been able to even connect other people within the church with other people going through the same things that they're going through.
Yeah, so as the band comes up and gets ready to sing our next song, even things like, I was thinking, the night before the election, we had a prayer service, and it wasn't about who to vote for. Like, that's your call, it's not ours. We talked about how to treat people who vote differently than you, and how we can pray, and like that can be our ministry to our country. And we're doing a Thanksgiving Eve service, 6:30 the day before Thanksgiving. It's online only, but just things we wouldn't have been able to do without this. So, real quick, what's your vision then for online ministry moving forward?
I think my vision would be that it just continues to grow. Now, I never, and none of us ever want online ministry to replace being in church. It's still important for us to gather together as a group. But what I would like to see is it to continue to enable us to be in church when we physically can't be here, and also enhance church for us, allow us to grow relationships with each other, with Christ, within our families.
Yeah, so in the end, I mean, it's a beautiful vision. I've talked about a little bit of vision, Chad has, but in the end, the vision that matters is God's vision. And John and Elizabeth and Jimmy, they're going to sing us a song now about not our vision, but God's vision, how we can just cling on to that and have that be the center and the focus of our lives.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or
Okay, so John and Jimmy and Liz, thank you, and want to give a shout out to our bass player as well. Bass players kind of, get a little quirky sometimes. They're behind the scenes, but John Butler just does such a good job, and Nick Schlick is on the drums. And the reason I wanted to just talk about y'all just real quick is one of the things our church is built on is volunteerism. And all these people are great, and they could be making money playing somewhere else, but they're doing it here for free. And yeah. I do have to take Jimmy to lunch sometime. We'll do that in 2022. And but it's just the commitment here is high. Like for musicians, like this is a significant investment. But we got people back at the tech booth this morning. We got security people. We have greeters. Ministry at the Water's Edge, I would say 95% of it happens, through volunteers, and this is a great example. So thank you all for leading us in worship this morning. They'll be back up once in just a few moments. Leandra Essler is up here now. Leandra started here at the Water's Edge as an intern. We had a mutual friend who was a pastor in Iowa. I remember when we met, it was at California Tacos down by Creighton, where you were going to be a senior. So you were here for 2 years as an intern. You went to seminary at the Divinity School at Duke University, and then after that you came back here to serve on our staff. Most seminaries that I am familiar with, including the one I went to at Emory and the one you went to at Duke, don't have a class on how to be a pastor during a pandemic. So you came kind of at an awkward time, but what's it been like for you the first year and a half or so that you've been here?
Yeah, so like Craig said, 3 years of study, never learned how to shoot a video or how to preach to a camera and all of that, and here we are. My first year ended with the pandemic, and I remember, when that news was kind of happening, I was like, oh boy, what are we gonna do? And we had a staff meeting, and in that, I remember talking about, we decided we were going to be intentional about never saying the church was closed. Even though in-person wasn't happening, we didn't want to say that the church was closed, because like Craig said earlier, the mission was the same. Mm-hmm. And the church wasn't closed, but we definitely had to adapt and figure out new ways to live that mission out during the pandemic.
Yeah, so a lot of our colleagues would have churches that are in pretty precarious positions because they didn't have the technology. They basically had to be shut down for the most part during this time. Do y'all remember that one night that I actually got here and the police were here? And I'm like, why are the police here?
That was awesome.
And we were kind of a star on social media, I guess, in the wrong way, that we were hosting a blood drive and we were taking a lot of criticism online, and someone would actually call the police to do a compliance check. And we're very careful and safe around here. I would never, put anybody in harm's way physically. And, so we're shortage of blood, we do a blood drive. And tell us about some of the other things we've been able to do here at the church, during the pandemic to serve our people and serve our community.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did well and we were ready for in the pandemic is something that the Water's Edge has always been good at and has always been one of our values here, and that's community. I mean, at this time when everyone was kind of isolated at home, lonely, this church was able to provide community in a way that wasn't being provided anywhere else at the time. And our house churches got creative, whether it was Zoom or driveways. I think we had some parking lot parties out there this past summer, but I remember hearing from some people that house church meeting was really their only social connection during the week, during those days of quarantine. We even had some new house churches starting during the quarantine. It's hard enough asking someone to lead a house church in person, but we actually had some leaders that are like, yeah, I'll start a group and we'll meet on Zoom for the first time. So we had strangers coming together on Zoom and forming these house churches at a time when people really needed that, really needed the community, and that was able to happen here.
Yeah, I remember when we first opened up back for worship again, and we do this in a very safe way. Everyone here has masks on if you're not up on the stage, and there's enough room here that you're not just 6 feet apart. There's 16 or 26 feet apart in most cases. But I remember people come up to me the first time they come back to the building after being gone for so long, and there was a woman who was just here last week for the first time, and I could just tell it was a very emotional experience for her because it's home, and she said, "Can I hug you?" And well, you're not supposed to, but it seems like you want to, so we'll go for it. And I washed my clothes last time, so they're pretty clean, I think. And but yeah, so There's some really cool stories that have emerged from community that has happened because of the church during the pandemic. So what are some of those stories?
Yeah, so we'll hear just in a second from a woman named Tammy Ryer. Her and her husband Mark, they joined the church in 2019, obviously not expecting the pandemic to happen. And they were actually one of the families that joined one of those Zoom house churches. So in March, when everyone was quarantining, they were actually building community on Zoom. And now that group's gotten to meet in person a few times. And Tammy has a really cool story to share.
Yeah, so let's watch Tammy's story now.
My name is Tammy Ryer, and my husband Mark and I joined Water's Edge on Easter Sunday of 2019, and we actually stumbled across it. We had not been in a church for a while, and wanted to join a community, get involved, and came to Water's Edge, and we have not stopped coming ever since. Well, Mark and I were looking for a community that involved getting to know people, developing friendships, and really being active. And we have found that in Water's Edge. We really made a conscious effort to get involved. We wanted to get involved in a small group, but early on, the timing of it wasn't good for us. And so we were able to do something called Dinner for 8, and it was where 4 couples got together on 4 different occasions for dinner. And so that was nice, great way to meet people. We have since joined home church, so we have a great community that meets every Wednesday at somebody's home, and that has really been a lot of fun and a great way to meet people and get to know people on a little bit deeper level. The church has had a tremendous impact on us, and the timing was very interesting. It had been a long time since we'd been in a church, and so the fact that we found Water's Edge in 2019, little did we know that 2020 was going to happen. And the fact that it did, it has given us such a community. It's really helped us navigate through this very difficult year, and we're so appreciative that we found it when we did. Being members of Water's Edge during the pandemic was so incredibly important to us because it was such unfamiliar territory, and to try and navigate that on our own would have been incredibly difficult. We really immersed ourselves in the online worship services on Thursdays that happened early on. Those were really important to us. And the drive-through communions, the surprise parade for the Water's Edge staff, that was so much fun. And it brought some bright spots to a very difficult time.
Yeah, so bright spot to a difficult time. So Leandra, tell us a little bit about how the church has helped people navigate the pandemic.
Yeah, kind of like Tammy said, they couldn't have navigated this on their own. And one of the cool ways that the church kind of helped fill some of those needs during this pandemic is we just started a new program a few months ago called Churches That Heal. And this is kind of a mental health support community that we've wanted to start for a long time. And then during the pandemic, we saw those needs more and more, and it became really important to start that right now. And we just did the first session. We're hoping that this is a ministry that grows. We know Jesus cares about our mental health, and the church can provide help for some of those things. I remember just reading a few days ago the feedback forms from the first one, and a woman who took the class wrote on there that during this program she learned that she's not as alone as she thought she was, and that she starts to see herself differently than she did before, that she's starting to see herself and some of the things she's going through Jesus' eyes and how Jesus sees her, and could not ask for more from that program and how that's impacted her.
That's pretty powerful to say, I'm not alone as I thought I was. Like, I hope maybe a lot of people have felt that way throughout all this.
Yeah, and we started that program. We told people, we're not therapists, we don't have PhDs in this stuff, but what we can provide is community and hope. And it felt like that's what she found in that group. And it reminds me, there's this verse in Galatians, I think Galatians 6:2, and Paul's kind of writing about what his dream is for what the church is going to look like. And he says the people in the church will carry each other's burdens, and in this way fulfill the law of Christ. And I think we saw a beautiful example of that in churches that heal and throughout the pandemic, whether it was the prayer services or other things.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. At the beginning of the pandemic, when all of our house churches started to meet online, we originally started out with Craig's Zoom account to schedule these. And within a week, all four of us and Jenny had to get a Zoom account so that we could continue to get you guys set up on Zoom. And time again, we heard the same thing: is we love the opportunity to get together and just connect with one another and understand, we're all going through this together, and to be able to do that as a church was really cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with y'all to close. The church is at a critical time right now, and that's the church with the capital C, but it's the Water's Edge church as well. The band is going to sing a song in just a few moments, and one of the lines in the song is, "Greater things are still to come." And I really believe that. I believe that we as a people, we specifically as the Water's Edge Church, will emerge from this pandemic as more balanced and more focused and more vibrant than ever before. This church was built on the backs of volunteers that just gave so much to get to where we are. I think of all the men and women that set up chairs and pulled cables, that held babies, that were in a crowded, loud 7th grade classroom, that ran soundboards and shot videos and did all this stuff. Volunteerism, community, investment in the next generation, helping hurting people. It's always been what we've done. It's what we do. It's will always be what we do. During the pandemic, we've not closed. We've adapted. I look forward to this place being full again on Sunday mornings, and it will be someday. Until then, we'll have a sparsely populated crew here on Sunday mornings, and we'll do things online, and that's fine. It's the way it is. Couple things with generosity. Y'all just hit it out of the park with the Thanksgiving dinners. Just absolutely amazing. It surpassed even this optimist view of what was possible. Now, we have pledged $26,500 to the Millard Business Association to provide the Christmas presents and the food for kids in the Millard School District that may not have a present under their tree or food in their stomach otherwise. The good news is we're about halfway there already. So 1 week into a 3-week campaign, we're about 50% or so. Now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, about $14,000 that needs to be raised between now and December 1st. I know y'all will do this. Just go to our website, weomaha.com, go to the page Season of Giving. I think it's like $75 a kid for a Christmas present, and $100 for a family of 4 for food for a couple weeks. I really hope we exceed this goal, but we're definitely going to do our absolute best to meet this goal, and it's another way that we give from a broken heart. Now, we also give from a grateful heart. We've talked about stories of gratitude. Many of you have stories of gratitude. If I were to say, and that might even be a good thing for those of you who are online, just put in the comment section, what's a reason that you're grateful for the Water's Edge Church? Maybe it's friendship that was formed. Maybe it was you got help when you were hurting. Maybe it's you had hope when you were hopeless. You experienced the forgiveness of sin. Whatever it was, we give from a grateful heart. And the campaign this year has been lower key than we've ever done it before. Our budget's increasing 3% for 2021. It's the lowest increase we've ever had before. We don't have a lot of new people. Typically, we funded part of our expense growth through people growth. We pretty much had to shut down in early March and haven't fully opened up, since then. So this is going to be mostly on our existing people. So really want you to pray about what it would look like for you, even during a pandemic, to increase your giving by at least 3%. So if you give $1,000, your new pledge for 2021 could be $1,030. Or if you're really, really generous and you give $10,000, and we got dozens of families to do that, your new 3% increase gift could be basically $10,300. And, that's what that would look like. And I know y'all will do this. I just know that you do because you love your church and you, like me, believe that our best days are in front of us. The best is yet to come. The greater things are still to come. So go online. It was really cool. Even during our talks today, I saw people coming in, dropping off their pledge cards and, leaving, and that's fine. But for those of you who aren't here physically, just go online to weomaha.com. That's like Generosity 2021 to participate in our campaign for next year. And I hope everyone does that. It gives us, confidence going into the new year. And then go to the Season of Giving page to give to the We Kids. I want us to get to that $26,500 and just be a blessing to our community. So the band is going to close us with a final song. And as they do this, church, if you're here in person, if you're watching online, I want you to just reflect on these words. I absolutely love the song. Jimmy was talking to me last night about how he picked this song, and I couldn't agree more that this song is like the perfect song to end the service. Just reflect on these words. If you know the words, wherever you are, sing along with them. And after the band's done, I'll close this with a word of prayer.
You're the God of this city. You're the King of these people. You're the Lord of this nation. You are. You're the light in this darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless. You are. And there is no one like our God. There is no one like you. You're the Lord of creation, the creator of all things. You're the King above all kings. You are. You're the strength in the weakness. You're the love to the broken. You're the joy in the sadness. You are. There is no one like
good. The Eagles meets Chris Tomlin, and one of the things we've always tried to do here at the Water's Edge is just practice joy. It's our thing. It's from God. It doesn't come from the world, and if you can't do it in the church, you can't do it anywhere. So, band, thank you for blessing us this morning. Hey, just a real quick reminder, Thanksgiving Eve service, online only, 6:30 Wednesday night. Just a great way to kind of like start the Thanksgiving weekend. Practice a lot of gratitude this week. Practice generosity as well. Go to our webpage, both for the season of giving and the commitment for 2021. We're starting our Advent series next week, and that doesn't even seem possible. It's like 60 degrees and sunny out, and we're talking about Advent, but that happens next week, so I encourage you to join us again. So let us close with a word of prayer this morning. So, Lord, I just thank you, and we practice gratitude this morning. We thank you that there's so many stories to tell, and there's just hundreds, if not thousands, of other stories that we just didn't have time to tell this morning. Lord, we thank you for your provision for this congregation over the last 15 years, and we just cling on to the hope of that song. These words, then Jesus would speak these words, that greater things are still to come. Lord, we give you thanks that we can just partner with this amazing nonprofit in Omaha that feeds people, and Lord, we thank you for being able to partner with each other and partner with you and partner with them, and that people are going to have meals this Thanksgiving. God, I thank you in advance for just the blessing it is to give Christmas presents to people that we don't know. Lord, I thank you for just the generosity of the people in this church that have purchased this land that we sit on, that have paid for this building that we sit in, for the technology that makes this service possible. And Lord, this came at a high cost for many people. Just sacrifice and commitment are words in our vocabulary around here. And they're words in our vocabulary around here because these are words in Jesus' vocabulary, because there is nobody in human history who is more committed and who sacrificed more than him. And Lord, we just seek to be like him in how we think, how we speak, how we act. And God, we pray right now for the world. We are in a pandemic. I did a funeral on Friday for someone that died of COVID, and it was a tough day for a lot of people. And I know, Lord, that there's people who are isolated. There's people who are alone. There's people who are seeking and desiring and praying for more joy. Words like isolation are words that we're hearing people use that they haven't ever used those words before, but it's their story right now. And God, we pray for the scientists and the researchers who continue to work for vaccines, for the overworked doctors and nurses and medical people that work in hospitals and doctors' offices. Just give them strength and energy, Lord. Many teachers get a little bit of a slowdown this week, and I just thank you for their dedication to our kids and to our community. May they get some time of rest and rejuvenation. I just thank you for every last one of them. And Lord, I pray for our church. I pray that these next 15 years will just be 100 times better from the first 15 years, that you'll even exceed our wildest dreams. So God, you're a good God, and we can pray this prayer in confidence because we know that you are God. So Lord, it's together now in one voice that we come and pray the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thanks, everyone, and have a happy Thanksgiving on Thursday.